I'm gonna try to make this a video response to ovi1013, if he'll let me. He was talking about a woman in Oregon that was raped, and the cops couldn't get there in time. I saw it on Fox News last night. I actually wrote Bill O'Reilly an email, but he gets thousands of emails. We're not gonna read mine on air. I'm gonna tell you about the email I wrote Bill O'Reilly, and I'm gonna tell you the incident that happened to me. Now, his incident, ovi1013's, was a lot more interesting than mine and intense than mine. I'm gonna post a link to him below and try to respond this way if you'll let me. I had an incident. This is about the cops can't get there in time. I had an incident a couple of months ago where I'm on the corner of my job, and up the block, maybe half a block across from me, there was a whole bunch of kids gathering for like 10 minutes. High school kids, junior high school kids, elementary school kids, all different ages gathering. And the neighborhood is not the nicest neighborhood in the world, so I'm like, what the fuck is going on there? So yeah. And after a few minutes, I walk back, and one of the women who was standing across the street, one of the mothers, says, "Call the cops, they're gonna fight." I said, oh, fuck. So I dial 911 on my cell phone. Because it's the cell phone, it goes to the state police dispatch or some shit like that, and you gotta tell them what city. Yonkers. Okay. I get disconnected. I'm like, oh fuck this shit. So I yell out, "Hey kids!" Now I'm gonna yell out, "What the frick are you doing?" I'm thinking you guys are gonna fight. I'm calling 911. Half the kids took off. Then half the kids stuck around and said, "We're just talking, or we're going about this bullshit or whatever." But the issue is, God forbid they did have to fight, I would not have been able to get the cops there. And there are a couple of cops that do roaming patrol, but how often are they gonna come around? And the woman, they were the business they were outside of was a driving school headquarters. The little small store was a driving school. And the driving school manager came out and started yelling at them, and then she went back inside, and then I told them I was gonna call the cops, and they broke up. Now, my fear is, what if the kids get into a fight and they're hitting each other, slapping each other, and one kid falls and goes into the street, and the light green car comes, and the car can't stop in time, and those cars do fly. There's a school, an elementary school, a few blocks away, and most of the kids in the neighborhood walk to that elementary school and back in the afternoon. What if you have an elementary school kid walking back in the afternoon, and they're walking by, and they're not involved in it, and they get pushed into the street and a car hits them? Okay, it's a very, very narrow street, whole bunch of kids on it. It ended up being they weren't doing anything at all, thank God. But what if? Okay, it's what if this, what if that, what if it turned like this, what if it turned like that? Okay, now the incident with me and ovi1013 are talking about happened in Oregon. There's a woman, calls 911 dispatcher, and says, "The guy is coming into my home. Can you leave?" "No, I can't. He's blocking my only way out." Blah, 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 blah. "Tomorrow you can go down and report it to the detectives." He's not breaking in tomorrow, honey. He's breaking in tonight. And the dispatcher was like, well, if he comes in with assaulting you, ask him to leave. First of all, if you could ask a criminal to stop assaulting you, there wouldn't be crime. I mean, now what happened, wind up was there were 6 deputies to control 80,000 to patrol 80,000 citizens. You ever see that small town in the middle of fucking nowhere, where there's a sheriff, a deputy, and a secretary? Yeah, well, this is worse. 80,000 guys and 6 cops. The wind-up was, it was her ex-boyfriend. He had beat the shit out of her a couple weeks earlier. He came in, beat the shit out of her again, raped her. They didn't show that on the, they didn't have that on the 911 call that they showed on television, but now, granted, the cops can't get there in time, but why the fuck does the dispatcher gotta say, "Tell the detective tomorrow, can you ask him to stop"? You're adding insult to injury. If I'm on the phone with 911 and 911 tells me, tell the guy to stop, I'm like, okay, I'll tell him to stop. I'll tell him to stop. Believe me, I'll tell you to fucking stop. You call now. When I tell you to stop, you fucking stop. I got 2 handguns and a fucking rifle, and you'll fucking stop. Anyway, the point being, you should be required to own a firearm. And this is the email I sent to Bill O'Reilly. Switzerland gave us the model for the Second Amendment. That's the founding fathers we're thinking of, okay? In Switzerland, for many centuries, you were required to bear arms, okay? It's not an option. You must bear arms, period. Now, my opinion is it should be required of you to own a firearm. We would have to make exceptions for the criminally insane, domestic abusers, convicted felons, drug addicts, conscience objectors. But for all people that are not drug addicts, felons, domestic abusers, it should be required of you to own a firearm. In fact, New York state law from a century ago literally says the government will give you a firearm. Well, the government didn't give me a firearm here, so they owe me one. And I will call them on it one day, believe me. So, the government should be required to provide you with a firearm, even if they give you a high point. Okay? High point may look like shit, but believe me, ask Barry and Eric how good they are. From Iraq veteran 8888, okay? Even if the government gives you a firearm, one firearm, okay? We can afford to send firearms to the Muslim brother in Egypt. We can afford to give millions of dollars to countries that hate us. We can afford to give law-abiding American citizens one firearm, okay? And you should be required to keep one firearm in your home. You should be required to keep 250 round cartridge boxes in your home. In Switzerland, the cartridge box is sealed with a tape. It has like one of those, you can open it, but you can't open it without it, like tamper-proof. You know, when you have an aspirin bottle, you have to break the seal. Yeah. The cartridge box in Switzerland has the 5.56 cartridges for the rifle, for the SIG 550, I think it is. And they tell them, you open this cartridge box at the range, in front of the range master, when you qualify for your firearm once a year. And in case of invasion, you're allowed to open it on your own. And I guess you can have your own firearms if you want, or your own ammunition if you want, but the government should give you one firearm and 100 rounds of ammunition a year, sealed in a box. You want to buy your own firearms? Fine. You want to buy your own ammunition? Fine. Okay? And once a year, you should be required to qualify on the range with your firearm from the government, with your ammunition from the government. You should be required to do this. Okay? It might be a handgun, it might be a rifle. If you live in big inner city, it might be a pistol caliber carbine. Okay? If you live in a fucking ranch in the middle of nowhere and you got 500-acre property, maybe it'll be a bolt action 30-06. I don't know. But you should be required to own a firearm by the government. You can opt out if you're a conscientious objector, but you should be required to, okay? This woman needed a firearm. She was a domestic victim. Her boyfriend was after her for a while. You should be required to own one, okay? The government should give you the gun, 100 rounds of ammunition a year, and a safety class. All males aged 21 to 60, mandatory. All females 21 to 60, optional. And that'll be our selective service. That'll be our draft. That should be required. And I'm talking to a fucking brick wall because you'll never get this through today. Never. John F. Kennedy believed this. John F. Kennedy was a lifetime NRA member, and he believed you should be required to own firearms. Martin Luther King owned firearms and was a Republican too on top of that. Okay? This should be a requirement of law, but it's not. The cops we love the cops, we respect the cops, but they cannot be everywhere at once. The cops cannot always help you. In fact, they can almost never help you guys. They just can't. As much as they want to, as much as we appreciate them, as much as we respect them, they can't be everywhere at once. And this dispatch needs to shut the fuck up with this ask him to leave. Give me a fucking break.